Hi again! Welcome back to Everyday Consent. My name is Sarah, and today's episode is Use Your Words Part 1. The theme of this and next week's video is something that might seem pretty simple, namely words, but it can be surprisingly difficult to find and use the right words in sexual situations. Today we're just going to focus on finding words, and then next week we'll talk about using those words. A quick note, I'm mostly going to be focusing on English, and the resources that I provide will also be in English. I apologize for this limitation, but likely similar resources will exist for other languages. When I say we should learn various words to use when communicating about sex, I don't just mean learning different slang words for genitalia, or even anatomically correct terms for genitalia. Though all of those are important too, and really the goal here is just to find language that you feel comfortable enough using that you can communicate clearly and confidently. So if you decide that you feel most comfortable calling your vulva a hoo-ha, then by God, it is your hoo-ha. But no, I don't just mean finding words for genitals, because sex is about a lot more than just genitals. It's about people, and people are more complex. And even when we are just talking about the body as relates to sex, there are a whole lot of other parts of the body to touch, see, think about, and involve. After all, I think most of us would agree that sex with another person is a very different experience than would be sex with some floating disembodied penis or vulva. Now try to get that image out of your head. What we're focusing on right now is self-awareness, which includes finding words to describe our own current state and desires. Since we are complex creatures, this includes more than just the physical. It includes the mental and emotional as well. So one of the skills that we need to work on is emotional self-awareness, which means, that's right, we're gonna talk about our feelings. Get ready, because we're gonna have to do this a lot, and really you're gonna have to do this in life a lot. Emotional self-awareness is a hugely important skill. Sadly, in our society, discussing and expressing our emotions, especially emotions such as insecurity or sadness, is hugely stigmatized and seen as weak or feminine. And we need to work on that. But anyway, the point is that we might have some trouble talking about our emotions. But it is important, and we're gonna do it. At one point during college, my therapist handed me this chart, which I think is a pretty good starting point. I had a little trouble tracking down the origins, but it looks like it might have been developed by Dr. Gloria Wilcox. The cool thing about this chart is that it first groups these words into categories like angry or sad, and then has different levels that get more and more specific. So say I'm trying to figure out a word to describe how I feel about my friend ignoring my text messages. So I look at the chart and I say, yeah, I'm feeling kind of sad, and feeling a bit abandoned, and feeling pretty ignored. Cool, that's 3 whole words that I can use to describe my current emotional state. Awesome! This chart isn't perfect, and it's far from all-inclusive, but it's a good place to start. Also, I highly recommend using a thesaurus if you find a word that's close but not quite right. Now to switch gears a bit back to the physical. Sex is very physical and does have a lot to do with our bodies. So our next super important skill is body awareness. This is something that people who dance or do sports might be a lot more familiar with. It's very useful in these endeavors and in general to be able to listen to your body and to be able to describe what sort of sensations you're feeling and where. For example, right now I'm feeling a painful tightness in my back right between my right shoulder and my spine. That information can help me, or someone helping me, determine where that pain is, what's causing it, and how to improve it. And you can imagine how a similar process might help me describe to a partner what does feel good and what I think might feel good. These are some ways in which an anatomical understanding of your body can improve your ability to communicate in a sexual setting. So I highly recommend taking the time to learn a bit more about human anatomy, and I provided a couple resources below. But we want the ability to describe our bodies and how they move and feel in more than just clinical terms. And here's where I found things like romance novels to be a surprisingly useful resource. Now, granted, romance novels have their fair share of issues and problematic themes, but they are pretty gosh darn descriptive when it comes to sex. I found a website that aggregates descriptions of different body parts and actions, and I highly recommend reading through those lists. Along the same vein, fanfics can also be pretty good for this, as well as any porn where the actors talk a lot about what they're doing. I'm also a big fan of anything instructional or educational about sex, and I'll list some of my favorites below. Now, I've listed a lot of different resources, but this is really just the tip of the iceberg in terms of resources like this out there on the internet. So I really suggest that you find something that you like. To practice what we talked about today, here are your assignments for the week. 1. Read through a list of emotion words and choose a few to describe an emotion that you felt sometime this week. 2. Take a moment to lie down and breathe calmly, and try to list any parts of your body that might be feeling pain, stiffness, or tension. 3. Read through some of the romance novel lists or some similar resource, and use some of those words or phrases to describe how you might want a partner to interact with a part of your body. And 4. Describe something that surprised you or that you found interesting about doing the previous exercises. You can share any or all of your responses in the comments, or maybe with a friend, or even keep them to yourself. I do recommend writing them down in a journal if journaling is something that works for you, or at least saying them out loud to yourself. Happy consenting, folks! I'll see you next Sunday with Use Your Words Part 2. Penis or vagina. Vulva. My own current state is hugely stigmatized. Painful tightness. Tightness? Tightness. That's really unpleasant.